every living creature, animal or plant, has carbon in the molecules of their very being. And what I'm going to teach you is about the human mind, but I'm going to teach you about why carbon memory is important to our unconscious recall. And so, first of all, when I teach the human mind, I like to give you a diagram. And as far as I know, I'm the only teacher that does this, because the mind is invisible, isn't it? And if I just talk about it, you might be thinking, well, that kind of makes sense, but I'm not sure. Where does that actually fit? So if I was talking about the brain, I'd be talking about the neocortex, which is the part of our mind that is traditionally linked with reasoning and processing information, and some memory. But I actually locate memory at the back of the brain here in our reptilian primary brain stem. And there's a good reason why I'm doing that. So the things that I teach you don't see written anywhere, or certainly not at the time I'm recording this video. You'll never see something called carbon memory in unconscious inheritance and recall, well, maybe in another 10 or 20 years' time. So let's get ahead of the game. And first of all, I want to teach you about consciousness. Consciousness has three aspects to it. Freud put it first forward. Carl Jung also said it, although he used different language. So the purists of you out there watching this video, you can email me, I'll explain what I mean by that. But for just generally to teach you about the mind, there's three components to it. So we have consciousness at the front, which is what you're listening to me now. You're decoding my words and the symbols that you're seeing on the screen. And then we have a barrier, and this barrier is really important. It's a censorship barrier, an agency that works in between consciousness and the unconscious part of the mind, which is back here, which most people are frightened about because they can't see it. So I'm drawing it for you here so you can see it, and also I'm going to teach you about memories. And so if you have any sort of symbols in dreams, or you've got any PTSD or anything like that, then this is going to come in really useful for you to understand what's going in your mind. But this video is really about carbon memory, and to date not discussed anywhere else. So welcome to this introduction to a new concept into the collective mind. Okay, so how do we as humans learn anything anyway? So we go to school, don't we? And we're shown information and we're told information. So learning comes in here, comes into our, from our visual world or our auditory world, comes into the mind, and hopefully we record it at the back here. And so we can then later bring forward the memory later on. So I won't get into forgetting and amnesia and recall. When it comes to traditional memories, I really want to talk about historical ancient brain memories. And so this is how we learn anything in the first place. So let me show you this little apple here. You know, when you go to school, you're shown perhaps that symbol of an apple, and somebody will say to you, this is the sounds apple, and it begins with an A, and this is how it's spelt, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to draw you the apple memory in your mind to show you what it looks like and how you have this massive library in your mind. So here's our apple back here, and then we've got A for apple, then the whole spelling of the word is like this, and then we know what it tastes like, and then what it looks like. Okay, so that is an apple. Okay, it's not too clear in the video, but you get the picture. It's this kind of spider diagram building. This is actually what we call a schema. And so you might have heard schema theory in technology, but it's related to in psychology here. And so we store nuggets of information in these schemas, and as we grow, we become more sophisticated. So, for example, I showed you this, but you know that this is golden, and you know that this is a hard object. So actually doesn't fit completely into our schema. We can't eat this apple, but you know that because as years in primary school you learned A for apple, but now you will know that your schema has become more sophisticated. So you've learned. And that is the definition of learning, is that information comes in and it stays in your unconscious part of your mind, your long-term memory, so that later on you can recall it again. like I say, I'm not going to get into memory as such, as in the memory stores, the short-term memory and things like that, because this is a completely new concept that I'm introducing you to. So that's how a schema manifests itself in your unconscious world. Okay, so up here we've got the neocortex, and down here is your reptilian brain, where I'm suggesting that there's a whole component of memory that actually, and this is the point that I want to get across, it doesn't come from the outside in, it comes from the inside out. And so you might have memories that you think, hold on, when did I learn that? I seem to have this knowledge that I can't remember somebody teaching me it. It seems to have come from a higher state of consciousness, another place, a knowledge that isn't in the public domain, isn't in the general view of how our minds work. But suddenly you have this information, you have this total recall. Actually, I hope you don't have total recall, because that can overwhelm consciousness. Now, you remember what I said about this barrier here? The point of the barrier is to protect you from all the kind of wildness that the unconscious can get. This is the matrix, by the way, back here. This is matrix territory. This is, the whole light and dark aspects of the mind. You have historical, archetypal structures in the unconscious too. And we have our fantasies and our wants and our wishes, and they can be quite childlike sometimes too. But we have this censorship in this in the middle here. So if things are coming up from our unconscious or from our memory that are going to overwhelm us and overwhelm our consciousness, then it's the role of our ego. I won't go into that now, but it puts forward a defense mechanism so that you will not remember that thing that could disturb you. Okay. So the mind is an incredibly sophisticated machine, really. I mean, supercomputer. If we knew how smart we were, we'd pass out. But what does this mean to carbon memory? Well, what I'm suggesting is that, for example, when we die, we go to ground. So whether we're cremated or buried, all of the cells in our body are going to go into the ground, and so they stay in the physical world. And what that means is they're then taken up into the food chain one way or another. And so from a biological point of view, I won't even go to metaphysics, I'm going to stay in physics. From a biological point of view, then we can pass through the food chain. Parts of our cells today can pass through the food chain in carbon form and become inherited into the next physical form. So simply, just let me give this really basic, I'll give a technological lecture on this if people want me to, but I'm just going to keep this really basic. We die, our cells go to the ground. Let's say it gets taken up by a tree, and then later on somebody eats part of the fruits of the tree, so they digest them into the human form. That person becomes pregnant, and out you come. So that's just a really rudimentary circle of how it is physically possible. Like I say, I'm not going to get into metaphysics, that's a subject of a whole nother lecture. But so it is possible to trace cells that pass through, and they remain resilient from carbon memory. So now some people have some pre-life regression. So hypnosis is where you put consciousness to sleep, and so you access the unconscious world, and the unconscious world does speak a language, but most people can't read the language because it's an ancient language. But I can read the language, and it's in symbolic form. Again, another video. But for now, what does it mean then? Well, it means that in everyday life, memories, so let's say you've had an experience back here, and it's gone into your memory and it's living back here. Now, the thing is, when we have disturbing memories, they block and lock rather energy, and so it becomes a sort of a negative build-up of energy. And the role of a therapist is to go into your mind or help you get out that distressing memory, talk about it, re-look at it, because maybe there's some aspects we didn't encode correctly in the first place. Maybe we got it a bit wrong, or flashbulb situations are going to just go straight into the back of your mind and sear on the back of your mind. So if you've had a very traumatic experience, your unconscious is going to have lots of these kind of nuggets of blocked energy. And so the whole point is we want you to feel peaceful, not just in your conscious mind, but in your unconscious mind. So we go into the memory, get it forward, take the energy out of it, and then you might refile it with not so much intensity. That is the goal of analysis, is to get you to have a peaceful unconscious mind as well. It's an ongoing process. Even really skilled people who know about the unconscious part of the mind, I'm going to say inside out. There's not really that many people that do, but it's an ongoing process, and so you just learn techniques of how to deal with the unconscious part of your mind as well. Now, what happens in carbon memory is that when we're born, we don't only inherit the DNA of our parents' physical cells. I'm suggesting we inherit the DNA of our parents and their parents and their parents' parents, metaphysical cells in their mind. So inheritance to me isn't just biological, it is psychological as well. Our predecessors learned so much, but we have retained their learning and their memory in the very depths of our subconscious or unconscious mind. And when we have recall, we are to take those ancient memories and advance them, so that as a collective we can progress our knowledge and our understanding, and we can move forward. But this is a very snapshot at carbon memory. I could make this a 2-hour lecture. Maybe I will one day, but I'm just putting it out there in the ether today. It's not out there. You can Google it. You can look on YouTube. It's September 2020. I'm putting this out today. Carbon memory lives in unconscious inheritance, in the depths of our cells. And it's important to consider this, because when the fantasy, the unconscious mind, comes into reality, when it comes through the censorship, if you're having total recall, it's going to send you into an existential experience. Look in philosophy if you want to Google that word. It's going to send you into an existential experience, and you are going to think that you are Neo in the Matrix. And, well, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I obviously keep humour about these things. But that's what's happened. The Matrix is the back of the mind, and all that's happened is all of these memories have suddenly come forward into conscious awareness. I'll just say one last thing, that it's my observation that as we get older, that this censorship, this barrier, starts to get tired. And so it's worth doing your homework, all of us, all the time, all the way out of here. Okay. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.